that would be my one prayer to the gods of the Indian pharmaceutical ecosystem. It's very hard to stand out. Don't compromise on the product.
Welcome to MedVaani, the platform where healthcare, innovation, and leadership come together to inspire the new generation professionals and entrepreneurs. Today, we have privilege for hosting Mr. Darpan Roy Chowdhury, co-founder of ErasaVir and Business Head of Strassenburg Pharmaceuticals. He is also serving as Vice Chairperson of Next Gen Committee in the Indian Drugs Manufacturers Association. As well as he was elected for Business World 30 Under 30 Healthcare List. Thank you, Mr. Darpan Roy Chowdhury, for joining us. Could you please tell me about something about the ErasaVir and what is the vision behind its establishment?
First of all, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure. ErasaVir actually is a company and a brand we started during the pandemic. Today, I think many people would like to forget that we ever went through a COVID-19 pandemic. But at the time in 2019, 2020, everybody's lives had changed completely. And ErasaVir was a company that we founded at that time. So I'll just give you a little bit of a background. What happened was some of my friends and colleagues who are scientists, some in India, some in the US, some in Scotland, we used to get together once a month to just discuss the state of the pandemic, what do we know about the virus, what latest innovations are coming out as industry professionals. We didn't have a lot to do that time. We used to be at home and we used to try to understand why this is happening, what can be done. And so from there came this idea that enveloped viruses like SARS-CoV-2 have structural inefficiencies or weaknesses that can be used to kill them or eradicate them. Like we use soap, for example, to wash our hands. The idea was, can we use something like soap, but that is organic and ingestible, so that we can bring that external hygiene to the inside of the body. So immune responses, drugs, those have certain limitations and are also much more difficult to formulate and research. But the limitation is that the viruses and bacteria, they keep adapting, evolving and changing. So they become less and less effective, the drugs on them over time. We know about AMR and things like that. So we said that, soap is a very simple thing and it can kill all these viruses and bacteria on contact. So if something is so good at what it does, if the only limitation is that it can't be ingested into the body, can we try and solve that? So that's how we started the research on the products that we currently have. And then we tested these products, the R&D formulations that we made, and we saw that it kills 100% of the SARS-CoV-2 virus in vitro when we tested. So we said, now we have to build around this. We must create products. We cannot only let this become research. The world is in need of products like this. So let's go ahead and start. We didn't really know where it was going to go. But then eventually we saw that a lot of viruses and bacteria that make us fall sick work in the same way. So then we built nasal and throat sprays, which are our two main products today around it. And we are still split between the US and India. But we are trying to grow our presence in these markets and then hopefully add on others as well. That's the rough story of ErasaVir.
That's great, actually. So, what is the next 10 years plan for the ErasaVir?
I think we see ourselves as a hygiene company. We want to be in the consumer health space and focus on respiratory care, because we think that that is a underexplored segment. Mostly the products that you come across as a consumer or a patient in this area are prescription only drugs. We have very few scientific daily use products that can help you avoid falling sick or reduce the severity of everyday common illnesses. So we want to add more products, more dosage forms using the same technology that we use with ErasaVir. We want to stay simple with our ingredients, but high quality research, and take the nasal throat spray platform into other formats. move into other product areas, but still stay true to what we believe in doing, which is innovating new products for respiratory hygiene. Because we believe that if we can change how hygiene works, like I mentioned, hand washing, you and I, we brush our teeth every day, we shampoo our hair a few times a week, we use body wash, some people use mouthwash, we use soap. These are all part of your everyday routine now, but they didn't used to be. If you go back a few decades or a few centuries, depending on when what came in, they weren't always there. So our dream or our vision is, can we add one or two products to this everyday use area that can lead to lesser and lesser illness over time? That's the dream. So if we can do that in a few countries, that is a huge deal. If we can do that just well in India, that is good enough for us also for the next 10
Yeah,
years.
for India, it's mandatory. We need this one.
We do. We do.
Okay. Beside this, also you are also one of the important part of the Strassenburg Pharmaceuticals. You are the business head of there. But beside that, the Strassenburg Pharmaceuticals is famous for the Mr. Darpan Roy Chowdhury, is your father, and Strassenburg Pharmaceutical is very famous in Eastern India also, as well as in India, for some important product like the Sucral and the Parasafe. So, what motivates from your father for this professional journey?
Um, yeah, for me, actually, when I returned, I was in school in Calcutta, and then I did my undergraduate studies in the US. I was fortunate enough to, be able to study lots of different things. But then I always wanted to build in India. Now, whether that is because of a family business background or something in me, but I did not stay on in America. I wanted to come back to India and build things. And in India, there's a unique thing that if you don't build things on the ground, if you don't deal with people on the ground, it will take you a long time to understand how to get things done. So people have a little bit of a hard time adjusting. So when it comes to my father, I think some of the biggest things that I have learned that I try to emulate wherever possible is a relationship first approach, which is very typical of first, second generation entrepreneurs in India, especially those who started in the 70s, 80s, 90s, from that period. That's something that I think we in the younger generation don't fully know how to utilize, or we don't think of it in the same way. In a digital age, you can get connected very quickly with people. You think you have a lot of connections, but
Exactly, yeah.
actually the quality might not really quite be the same. So from him, I have definitely learned how to foster relationships, not for the sake of some ultimate end, but just to help each other as you go along your journeys. That has been a good learning for me, certainly. And I think just keeping things simple, having focus. We were discussing this earlier that at our ages, when you have a bit of a fire in your belly, you want to do things. The risk is not motivation or lack of motivation, but the risk is actually taking on too many things and
Exactly.
not doing all of them very well or not doing justice to them. So from my father, I learned how to reduce the things, I think, that we work on, and have focus and focus on good quality output in a few things rather than not so great output across a lot of things. Quality is certainly something I definitely picked up from him. I'd like to think that I have my own standards, or I would come to it myself eventually. But in Strassenburg, quality has always been the sort of north star of our company, right? We don't make very complex drugs. We make fairly simple things, but we feel like we make them better than a lot of people around us. We like to be the best in the few things that we specialize in. And actually, the brands that you mentioned, Sucral, Parasafe,
That's it.
those are brands that grew out of this philosophy. That Sucral is a GI, a gastroprotective. Parasafe is a paracetamol product. They're not very advanced chemistry products, but what separates them, I think, has been a focus on quality, and how they grew in the hearts and minds of practitioners who have supported us and prescribed our products over the years, is also, I think, because this idea of quality was very clear in the products. Back in the day, I think when they started out in the mid 80s, you would build brands in India exclusively through educating a doctor or a physician on the quality parameters of your product, where it can be used, what advantages to their practice it brings. Today, brand building in India in the pharmaceutical industry, obviously it has changed a lot. Just like many other industries, with technology, with culture changing, they've undergone changes. So I don't think you can follow the same principles exactly while building brands today, but some of the basics still apply, like this focus on quality, like having very specific areas that you focus on, because I think a physician wants to be told exactly what to use your product for. And amidst so many hundreds and thousands of products, sometimes we lose those things. So I would say these are high level things that I've acquired or had the pleasure of being around my father. The focus on quality, the focus on relationships, and a sort of humble, keep your head down and work approach. Those are big learnings for me.
Okay, you are supporting Made in India, and obviously Sucral, Parasave, this is a very famous product. So many entrepreneurs are coming now for making one product that will be successful. So what are the key strategies there? So how they can make one brand, how they can make one product successful for the market?
A number of ways obviously you can go about it, and that depends on what segment you're in, who your target audience is, what problem it is that you're trying to solve. But today the Indian wellness or nutraceutical or Ayurvedic, the non-prescription kind of segments that we're in, those have become very crowded very quickly. And similarly in prescription drugs also, it's very hard to stand out. If you're a new brand, it's very hard to have trust, as well as the doctor consider you as something slightly different and give you their support. So whether the consumer is directly your customer or the doctor is your customer, some things I think remain equal, and they remain the same through time, which is, many people don't see it as compromise, but they just have not educated themselves on where it can be, or what the standard for that product can actually be.
So
So I
quality
would
will be the
say,
last word. Quality will be the last
I
word.
would say definitely, aim the highest possible when it comes to quality. You're running a business, so at some point you have to say, if this pursuit of quality is compromising my ability to run a business, then I think you need to go back to the drawing board and look at that, because it's a never ending kind of graph. You can always have better processes, you can always have better ingredients. So I think it's very important to look at that, how to be a viable business, but how to not, compromise on quality. And I think something we miss out on, or especially in this part of the country, maybe we have not been able to do this with as loud a voice, is really spend time on how you want to communicate your product. Because very often we make something, we understand the manufacturing. Today contract manufacturing is such a big area that people find it very hard to differentiate just on the manufacturing bit. Many marketers are going to the same manufacturer for the same formulation, albeit with maybe slight differences. So where the differentiation, carving out your niche, really comes in, is you have to know that I am making this product for this person, and hence what I need to communicate to this person is these things. Too many people, I think, see that, okay, there are 5 products in this category. Let me just come in with a nice brand name and also try to take a little bit of that market. I think long term that doesn't work, right? So I would say pick areas where you can make a difference. Pick areas where you have something to say, and work hard on developing what it is that you want to say and how it is going to be different from others. So if you have quality and you have communication, then I think that you have a really good chance in today's sort of market, where the customer educates themselves, even if they have authority like a doctor to back it up. I think you can do very well if you get those 2 things right.
Yeah. Okay. Compared to the pharmaceutical hub in Ahmedabad and Hyderabad, what challenges we are facing in Kolkata or in Eastern region?
I think we need to reframe ourselves a little bit on this question, because it's a very important question. if we look at Ahmedabad or Gujarat in general, because now it has multiple places that have really become pharmaceutical hubs, or Hyderabad, which has maybe some of the best chemistry in the world, per square kilometer. We need to reframe where we stand as West Bengal or Calcutta, because on the one hand we have an academic heritage or culture within the hard sciences that is rivaling the best cities in India. We produce some of the best scientists of India. In the 70s and 80s, there was really only one pharmaceutical industry in India, which was based out of here because, let's say, of the post-colonial effects of centralization in Calcutta. We can't take a lot of credit for that necessarily, but fact is that we have this legacy and we have this culture within us. Even today in Bengali households, I think the way that we treat academia on average is slightly different from a lot of parts of the country, right? So we do have that on one side, but on the other side we have fallen so far behind when it comes to being able to compete with places like Ahmedabad or Hyderabad, that we need to reframe that where do we go from here. If we do everything with the perspective of, okay, here is how Gujarat progressed or here is how Telangana progressed on this one thing, and we try to catch up that way, I think that is too tall an ask. It's unlikely that we're going to be able to do it like that because they have a trajectory of their own. But I think what we can do is utilize this brain capital that we have, this intellectual capital that we have, and the foundations. And if we can really change the way we feed our young minds to our industry within here, if we can make people start businesses here, if we can help businesses grow here with people from the state, then I think you create a somewhat closed loop where you can keep your talent. And if you keep your talent and you give your talent the confidence to invest in the state, you give your business people confidence to invest in the state within the pharmaceutical sector, I'm saying, then I think that we have a chance of taking some ambitious shots at big targets, because we won't get there doing exactly what others have done because they might have done that in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Today, we're almost at 2030. So the playbook has to be different. And I think we need to focus on innovation more and more. But the challenges are there, like I said, that culturally, when you don't get to look around you and see high quality R&D, high quality manufacturing, high quality physician engagement, when you have to look to the west or the south of India to learn those things, then you do experience a cultural shift, right? That this doubt creeps in that can we also do it? Are we of that caliber? And I think the faster that we can help each other over here in this part of the country get out of that, the better a shot we have at tackling some of those things. So I think more than policy, more than geography, the challenge is that of mindset, because that is a softer problem to identify. You can't always put your finger exactly on it. So if we can help each other and challenge each other to build things here, I think we have the natural talent pool to be able to really do some of that stuff. But we need to rise up to the fact that it's a really big challenge. It won't happen with some discussion here and something there. It really needs to be a movement of sorts where we come together and say, no, we can make this happen. And so what are the things that we need to do in order to try and compete?
Yeah, in Kolkata, there are very talented professionals are there, but they are going out of the state because there are not that much of the pharmaceutical industry, that much growth is not here.
Right.
So now in the new government came to the West Bengal. So what are the expectations from the pharmaceutical industry, from the new government, how they can help?
Yeah. So again, there I think more than things which are specific to the pharmaceutical industry, because there are certain things that are specific to any industry. Pharmaceuticals has quite a heavy dependence on technical knowledge. So anything that affects, the steady inflow and maintenance of technical capital and knowledge within the state, that will help. There are also, sort of requirements for land use, and there's requirements for energy or for waste processing. Those are all things that people can use help on, I think. But first and foremost, I think it's a general point that if government in the state can be more and more conducive to business and investment in the state, irrespective of the industry, then I think pharmaceuticals entrepreneurs, healthcare entrepreneurs are no different from others. They will be able to take advantage of that kind of environment and do what is needed to really help us, catapult this one specific sector. But it's the challenge lies there that can you, in a relatively short period of time, change the business environment where things are easier to do, where people are approachable for help. Some of the basic things I think that we've struggled with in the past. If an industry wants to do a good thing, do you as a government enable them, or do you as a government create hurdles for them? I'm not including bad actors here. I am only speaking of those who genuinely want to create good businesses. How hard is it for them? If we can make it easier as a government in general, then I don't think that the pharmaceutical industry needs a whole lot of special incentives in order for things to happen. But I think what we can do at, sort of without going into great detail, but still touching upon some of these things, the colleges and institutions we have, which are public institutions in the state, I think that we can do a lot of work to improve the quality of education there, so that people who are learning from these institutions actually go into industry ready to implement or add value, right? I think that there's been over the years a big gap in what people are studying and, coming in with. If there are special policies or incentives on R&D or manufacturing, that always helps. It gives, I think, more than anything else, the confidence to try and take some calculated risks to an entrepreneur. But above all, I would say that if the general business environment is one where dialogue exists, where the government is truly interested in creating investment in the state, then I think the other things will sort of, fall into place. At the regulatory level, there are things that we can do, like, obviously, of drug manufacturing, the Schedule M requirements that are currently put in place. I think that these kinds of schedules and policies are always aiming at the right thing, because let's be honest, if we are making drugs, we're essentially selling people something that is supposed to make them better, that's supposed to cure a disease. It's not a plastic toy, or it's
Exactly.
it's not even a piece of household kind of furniture or something like that, where quality means that you have a bad experience, but quality does not mean that you might have a near fatal sort of experience or brush with life. So given the sector in which we are, I think these kinds of quality requirements are needed across the board, across the country. We need to be more standardized on these things, and we need to add that layer to be able to be globally competitive. But what happens often is that the assistance of, okay, I want to preserve industry, but I want to uplift quality, very often there is no bridge between, the regulator and industry. Even though I know the regulators in the state and nationally have done a lot of things to try and help, but I think that that's something that can be looked at maybe a little more, while keeping in mind that eventually we must get to those quality standards. If we don't, we perhaps don't deserve to make those kinds of products. But still, I think that the communication and interaction between government bodies and entrepreneurs or manufacturers, there's a lot for us to do. There's a lot left. It's both sided.
Yeah.
But I think that primarily the initiative is something that the government can take, because for an individual business to create channels of communication with the government is very hard. But for the government to say, okay, I'd like to bring all the stakeholders and try and understand what can be done, that makes things a lot easier. So if we can look at it that way, then general ease of doing business is the highest priority. And then I would say education and regulatory ease and communication with entrepreneurs and businesses, that's something that could help us.
Okay, so the bridge between the regulator and also the industry, that is needed. The thing is that academia industry, that is a very big gaps are there. student are pursuing the masters, but whenever they are going to the industry, that is a totally different thing. So how we can reduce this gap of the academia and industry?
I think, really in my experience, in my limited experience, where these gaps are reduced is by having hands-on experiences, right? If there are channels of communication between institutions and industry where we are discussing openly, what it is that we would need, someone who is coming in, as a chemist, or someone who is coming in on the QA or QC or production, what are the kinds of skills that we would need someone to have some basic knowledge of, so that they can be useful to us in our business. That communication is, I think, somewhat missing.
Exactly.
And in many cases, even when we do have those lines of communication, then I think, due to challenges of executing that on the institutional side, very often people will still have that on the syllabus, but the student will not come to us actually knowing anything about that, right? So I think if we can just focus on classroom quality, and we can focus on industry academia exchanges, where a student understands what it is that lies ahead for them in this field, if they want a career in this field, then we can make progress on that. More communication and more hands-on kind of training. But at the same time, I think one natural challenge in this is that you have to have enough industry in the state for these experiences to happen. Now, across a state where you have lakhs and lakhs of students, if you have only a few facilities where they can learn these things, or where they can have these kinds of engagements, then that limits the rate at which you can influence these programs, right? So if industry increases in volume, in number, then I think automatically some of that will get addressed. But at the same time, I think if institutions are not serious about adjusting their pedagogy and their curriculum to suit what the industry needs today, not 10, 15, 20 years ago, if institutions are serious about that, then I think a lot can happen. So industry, from my experience, is largely very open to academia collaborations, because we know that this is our pipeline of talent, right? We know that this is where we are going to get our next 10, our next 20, our next 30 employees from, or partners from. But even despite that natural incentive, what happens is that sometimes industry feels that these interactions and this space becomes a little more for decoration than actual exchange. I think that becomes a limitation. If we can have good dialogue and try to implement, then I'm sure that industry academia will yield very good.
As an academician, I can tell that the students, those who are qualifying the bachelor's degree or the master's degree, when they are going to the industry, they are tagged as in freshers. So as in freshers, they are not getting that much of the salary in the pharmaceutical industry also. So they are not wish to go to the pharmaceutical industry in the production, QA, QC for this one only. So I think that the salary should be as per the standards. So what is your view regarding this?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple different things. First of all, I would say that I agree with you in the sense that if there's a qualified professional, they should have a competitive salary for what it is they do. But we have to understand, I think, what contributes to the current state of affairs. What are the different things that have led to it being where we stand today? This is a position I have not only for QA, QC, or the factory related positions that we're talking about, which are chemistry based, but even on sales and marketing, we have a hard time sometimes competing on these entry level salaries. But you see, if I can take that example of the marketing side, the average person who used to come in as a medical representative in the 1980s or the 1990s, because it was an aspirational job at the time, you got to interact with doctors and have the respect of doctors. It was a very different cultural equity than what it enjoys today. You had a certain kind of individual joining that position, right? Today, I would say that our brightest, even in that field, don't want to do that job where there's a lot of sales pressure. You are, spending hours outside in the sun meeting doctors, and you don't get paid all that much, right?
Yeah.
So it's become less. It has gone to lesser qualified individuals as a whole, because let's say now our brightest minds want to do IT jobs. They work in SaaS companies. They work in service sector.
Pharmacovigilance, clinical.
So, right. I'm saying that if we go to different industries altogether.
Yeah.
But if you look at what you're asking about, where you have a specialization but you're treated as a fresher, I think that a certain amount of industrial training and a period in which that you learn what is needed of you, that should be there in any job for people to understand whether it's for them and what they need to do. But in order for salaries and things like that to go up to meet the standards that you're talking about, I think two things need to happen. One is industry needs to grow in general, right? Because as there is more competition, automatically competition drives value up, because now the value of a qualified professional goes up and goes higher as more and more people are trying to get their hands on you, right? That's one side of the thing. And the other side, I would say, is also the quality of the education. And this person, when they come out with that degree, what is it that they can actually contribute? Sometimes we don't look at that closely enough. What you were asking in the earlier question, that if somebody has on paper certain skills, but industry still needs to work with them for 6 months or for 1 year for them to be able to do something in
not
their
that type
setup.
of practical skill.
So in that case, the industry also goes on the back foot, saying that how do I not treat this person as a fresher, even though in many cases you won't find the exact balance. So I think those are things that we need to work on. If we can uplift industry and increase competition, and we can focus on the quality of practical education within these programs, then a lot of this has a chance of being solved. In Bengal, not just in Bengal, but in any state where there is a history, a political history of the unionization of wages and things like that, that may have served certain purposes for certain industries and for people as a whole. The rights protection movements that we may have seen may have played a role for that. But it's very hard to be competitive globally while also keeping a position like that in mind, because when you try to level playing fields, what you rule out is the price-based inflation that comes from actual competition and actual quality. If you pay based on competence, then you cannot then have scales always, right? And so I think balancing those things is a difficult thing, and culturally people find it very hard to move, because systems have developed in such a manner that now the expectation is, let's say, X or Y or Z. So if we can move to a more reward against competence kind of culture, then I think automatically you'll see entry level wages and wages across the board really go up.
So industry will pay to the fresher student also if they have the practical skill. And
I think so.
Obviously, and nowadays this is a very fear that to get the right candidate. Why I'm telling the right candidate? Because for my job profile, what are the job we are providing, the student know that all the things, and when he came there, the candidate, they will do that perfectly.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that is the lacuna of our industry and as well as the academic industry gap.
Right. One thing here is, I actually think that no student, when they come into their first job, will be able to do everything perfectly. Every business person, every industry knows that. So there's already a certain amount built in that we have training programs for anyone who comes in, no matter what they already know, because we want you to come into the flow. We have a different way of doing things than maybe the next factory or the next company. So that process is there anyway. But I think sometimes the gap is a little too big. And that drives the part of the price or wage issue that you mentioned, I think.
India is often considered the pharmacy of the world. What do you think, what is the biggest strength of the Indian pharmaceutical industry?
Yeah, I think that the pharmacy of the world is a nice moniker. It's nice to have that. I think that in many ways we've really been able to do that, and still there's a lot left to go in terms of what we can do. What I think is our biggest strength is our resilience, because ultimately India is a country that's been through a lot. It's a lot of countries in one country, and it's a lot of different histories that combine to make us what we are today. So our resilience, I think, is really worth looking at, because Indian entrepreneurs across every sector, but in my personal experience, those that I have gotten to see in the pharmaceutical sector, have always really risen up to challenges and found a way to make businesses work. That's a general skill. That is the strength of all Indian businesses, I would say, that we have to learn how to operate businesses in a certain unique environment and then still come out with high quality products at the end of the day. It's a strength and a weakness that we balance. So I would say that resilience is probably the biggest strength that we have as an industry, as a people, as a culture, when it comes to building high quality businesses, because Indians are used to doing more with less.
Yes.
And that has enabled us ultimately to be the pharmacy of the world, having 1 in 3 pills in the US that are generic being supplied by us, or in different parts of the world 1 in 2 in some places of the world. I think that we've done very well on those things, but then again, your strength can sometimes become your weakness, and you tend to look at that as the only way forward and not at all the other opportunities that are around. But it has served us well, and I would say that our biggest strength has been resilience.
And I think maybe that's why many startups are coming to the India, and pharmaceutical startups they are building in the India. So what will be your advice to them?
I would say my advice to them, it's not like I am in a position to maybe advise a lot of people or anything like that. I'm learning a lot of these things, myself, and doing and failing and things like that. But my advice would be to not try and follow what has come before. The world is rapidly changing.
Yes.
I don't need to say that anymore. Today, it feels like if you ever mention AI, it's already overkill or something like that. But the world as we know it has already changed a great degree, and it will continue to change at a very rapid pace. So my advice would be, don't focus on how people did things before, the amount of time something took, or the best way to do something. Those paradigms are all shifting. You could be a world-class healthcare entrepreneur today, I think, with far less technical knowledge and training than you were required to have 10 years ago or 5 years ago. So my advice to people would be to be audacious, take on big problems and fail. And I know that's easy to say on a podcast, but a little harder when you have real risk attached. But still, that's the only way to build really cool, really competitive, world-class companies, is to take on really big problems, and then eventually some of us will make it through and build really great companies.
Okay, my last question: if you want to get the chance to be the king of the pharmaceutical ecosystem, so what changes you will do there?
I would say to the Indian pharmaceutical ecosystem, even though I am a child as far as the Indian pharmaceutical ecosystem is concerned, and primarily I am a learner in the ecosystem, but I think something that would really make me happy, and a lot of young people trying to do things, is we'd love to see a little more risk. I think that where we are today and what we do, we already do it globally comparatively. We're already some of the best at having low cost, high quality generic medication. But I think what young people in India would love to see and love to be a part of is a little more risk on innovation, new things. And truly, I think it's something that, of course, startups can do. But if our respected elders who command really legacy businesses, big businesses with a lot of resources, if priorities there can move just a little bit to accommodate and they can set this example that, you know, where you don't have to go to drug discovery, that's a far ways away, but if we can just shift our focuses a little bit to make a little more room for experimentation and investment in slightly riskier parts of the value chain, I think the whole industry as a whole will, you know, come up as a result of that. So that would be my one prayer to the gods of the Indian pharmaceutical ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it will be helpful for young entrepreneurs also, as well as for the pharmaceutical industry. So we'll go directly for one rapid fire round. So one word that defines Indian pharma:
Resilience, like I said.
innovation or scale,
Innovation.
genetic medicine or novel therapeutics.
Novel therapeutics.
One business leader you admire.
Nubar Afayan of Flagship Pioneering.
One habit that contributes most to your success.
Having an open mind.
One emerging healthcare technology everyone should watch.
Personalized medicine.
Great. Kolkata in one word.
Home.
ErasaVir in one word.
Future.
Strassenburg in one word.
Quality.
One message for aspiring healthcare entrepreneurs.
Just go out there and take really audacious, big dream kind of attempts at things. Some of us will fail, but then we'll have other ones that go through and build something.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Darpan Roy Chowdhury, for this wonderful session. I think this session will help to the young entrepreneurs also, as well for the pharmaceutical industry. Your view, your innovation scale, that will be changed to the mind of the young entrepreneurs. They can think something out of the box. They will take the risks after this session, and they will think something, yes, I can do also. If Mr. Roy Chowdhury can do, obviously they can also do like that. They will think. Thank you for the wonderful session.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.